Hi everyone, welcome to week 1 of vocabulary. I wanted to try making a video to see if people found this sort of instruction helpful. Sometimes vocabulary is something that we don't get to until the end of class perhaps, and it's rushed through and you're already tired and it's difficult to listen and learn. So I'd like to try making these videos and see whether this helps people get through the vocabulary uh, more easily. But we'll see how it goes. I'm not going to commit to doing this every week, but if people find it helpful, I'm happy to do it. Our first word is Adam, which means human, humanity, people, or person. Or it can be the biblical character Adam, the first human. Next we have Adama, which is ground, land, or soil. Barit, which is covenant. Goy, which means nation in English. In modern Hebrew, if you're a Goy, you are a non-Jew or a Gentile. So the Bible never talks about this term nation in relationship to Israel. So these are always foreign nations to the Israelites. Next we have davar, which has a broad meaning. It can be word, thing, affair, matter, the subject under discussion, things like that. Da'at is knowledge. Zahav is gold. Chodesh can mean either new moon or month, and because the Israelites adopted the lunar Babylonian calendar, you can see there's a relationship between new moon and month. And we also have the adjective chadash, which just means new. So there's your first adjective. Next we have the word chokhmah, which means wisdom. And you'll notice that that first syllable is a closed, unaccented syllable. So in this case, the little T-shaped vowel, which is almost always pronounced ah, is pronounced o. So it's chokhmah. And we have the adjective wise, hacham. Priest is kohen. Silver or money is kesef. Now you notice the word kesef has two of these little grape cluster vowels that are called segol. So they're segols or segolim in Hebrew. And the word itself is referred to by linguists as a segolet, meaning it has this array of two segol vowels in a row. That's not so important, but in this case, when this happens, the first syllable is almost always the accented syllable. So it's kesef, not kasef. Kesef. Next we have melech, which means king. Melech is also a segolet, so that makes it melech, not melech. Next word is mamlacha, which means kingdom. Malkut, which means kingship or reign. And finally, your first verb, malach, which means he reigned or he ruled. The next word is navi or prophet. Then eved, again a segolet, which means a servant or slave. avodah, which means worship or service or work. I think more commonly worship. Avad, another verb, which means he served, or he worked, or he tilled the soil, or he worshipped. Olam, which is often translated eternity, but probably more likely means a really long time. I don't know if the Israelites had a concept of infinity, so just means for the foreseeable future. Tzedek, which means righteousness, so it's a noun. And we also have the word tzedakah, which also means righteousness and is also a noun. So this is a masculine word, tzedek, and a feminine word, tzedakah. I don't think there's any magical meaning or difference between the two, the way the two terms are used in the text, although I've honestly never studied that. But they can both be translated as righteousness. And then we have the adjective, tzaddik, which means righteous. Next we have kodesh, which means holiness or a holy place or a sanctuary. And we have the word holy, the adjective holy, which is pronounced kadosh, again means holy. So when the seraphim in Isaiah 6 are flying around the temple in Isaiah's call vision, they are screaming, Kadosh, Kadosh, Kadosh. So holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. And our last word is kol, which means voice, sound, or thundering. So while I've got your attention, I wanted to point out a few things about these words. We'll learn a few more things. Our first word was Adam, which means man or Adam. And the root letters for Adam are Aleph, Dalet, Mem. So this is an easy one because there are only 3 letters, and it's easy to pick out. We also have the word Adamah, which means dirt or soil, and it comes from the same root, Aleph, Dalet, Mem. And it causes us to think about, well, what does the root Aleph, Dalet, Mem mean? And the base or basic meaning of the root is actually to be red, as in the color red. Now it's even maybe a little more mystifying. Start off talking about the story of Jacob and Esau that you find in the book of Genesis. And I don't know if you remember this story, but Jacob is sort of a trickster character, and he tricks his brother out of his inheritance rights, his birthright, and Esau is a very hungry guy, and Jacob's a good cook, and he makes this bowl of what most people think is a sort of lentil stew, and Esau comes in and he says, hey, give me some of that red stuff. And not uncoincidentally, Esau's descendants are referred to as the nation of Edom, or in Hebrew, Edom. So there's some relationship between red and Edom, and I think that's what that story tells us. And I think if you look at the story, the creation story in Genesis 2, human beings are created from the dust of the earth. So we have the Adam created from the Adamah. So we can see a relationship there. And so people have tried to work in the idea of red here. So perhaps the soil, the clay that people are made out of is very red. I don't know. And when people are alive, they are at least a little flush or a little red, maybe. I'm not sure. But so people sort of look at these roots and try to figure out what the relationship is between these words. Another thing I wanted to point out about these two words is the difference in the vowels. So here we have Adam. We have that first vowel, the T-shaped vowel called the kametz, which is a very long vowel. But when we add on a suffix, in this case an a suffix, which is a feminine suffix, the first vowel changes, so it becomes much shorter. So this word is pronounced Adama, not Adama. Maybe you can't hear that difference, I'm not sure. But here we have Adam, and here we have Adama. So that first vowel is reduced or shortened. And linguists call this by this phenomenon pro-Pretonic reduction. You don't need to know that. But you should know that once you start tacking on suffixes to roots, like we do here, the vowels often change, particularly the vowels towards the beginning of the word. And more fun with roots, we can see that the word for king, melech, is very closely related to the word mamlaka, which is kingdom. So same root letters, mem lamed kaf, mem lamed kaf. Here we have prefixes and suffixes added on, so it's not just suffixes. So we have a mem and an a. So these three root letters are essentially the building blocks of words. We have the same root in the word for reign or kingship, malkut. All we do is tack on an ut ending, which is also a feminine ending. And we have the verb malach, which means to reign. So all these words have something to do with king, kingship, kings and their power, I guess. We have the word tzedek. So our root is sade, dalet, kof. We can tack on an a ending and change it to tzedakah. So notice how that first vowel, that first segulate vowel, tzedek, is shortened dramatically, tzedakah. And we can even change that word into an adjective by adding an e vowel in the middle of the word tzaddik.